What's up, guys? My name's Hugh Miller, and Happy New Year. We are finally in 2022. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable. But to start the year off, I want to do something I've never really done before, and that's a Q&A. And I love answering questions, and I love interacting with you guys. And I just kind of want to give you guys a chance. If there's any questions you want to ask me, even as simple as what's your favorite game, I will gladly answer those questions because I just find it entertaining and fun. And so I put out a call a couple days ago, and I asked, what do you guys have? What kind of questions do you guys have? What do you want to know? And I got a few questions, and we're going to read through them, and I'm going to give you some answers. So starting off here, we've got some questions from two of my favorite people, Gooba and Jetpack. Please, guys, go check them out on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitch. They just make some amazing content. They're totally fun, totally chill. Go check them out. They had a few questions for me, and their first one was, what was your first game? Now, my answer to this is kind of two parts. The first game I ever played was Stay Tuned for Danger, way back in 2005, and the first game that I beat was the final scene around 2007 or 2008. And that was my start to the series. The next question is, were you immediately hooked on Nancy Drew, or was it more gradual? And no, for me, it was immediate. The first memory I have of playing a Nancy Drew game is playing Stay Tuned for Danger, and you're on the worldwide broadcasting stage, and you're trying to pull down the ladder that's there on the wall, and Nancy's like, it's stuck, the wheel won't turn. And you had to use the oil can to loosen it up, and then the ladder would come down, and you could climb up and walk along the catwalk. And for my memory, I just remember seeing this like this gray room. I just thought, man, is this like some kind of like spy base? And you're doing, in like some kind of base and looking around and trying to figure out what's going on. And I was immediately hooked, and I didn't know what was going on. I hadn't seen anything outside of the worldwide broadcasting stage. And I was like, this is brilliant. I love it. I want more. And so I got more, and here we are. The next question is, are there any soundtracks you find repetitive? Yeah, I'd say kind of yes. So like, I'm going to look at specifically games 29 and 30. So that's the Silent Spy and the Shattered Medallion. Those soundtracks to me, I love them both, don't get me wrong. But when the Silent Spy came out, I was like, oh yeah, this music's great. It's very Scottish and all that stuff. And then when the Shattered Medallion came out, I was like, I actually got to beta test that game, fun fact. And I actually thought that they had reused some of the music from the Silent Spy in the Shattered Medallion, because some of it sounded a little bit too similar to me, like right off the bat. And that wasn't the case, obviously, but it was the same composer, and the styles of Spy and Med, they didn't quite differentiate enough for me at the time. But, now I hear the differences, obviously, because I've heard them like a billion times, but I think those are the two that were very repetitive for me. But if we're talking individual music tracks, I'm going to go all the way back to Message in a Haunted Mansion. Specifically the tracks called Dining/Study and Parlor. Those tracks, to me, if you listen to them, they're very repetitive. They got the same music that it kind of loops in a way, but not quite loops. It's, yeah, like the musical notes loop, but they don't loop throughout the entire song, if that makes sense. I'd also say the soundtrack to Midnight in Salem is very repetitive in a lot of ways. It sounds all the tracks sound very similar to each other, which is not great if you're trying to remember what a track is called. Like, I know it's this one, but it's got like the same tune as this other one, and they kind of blend together. So yeah, I'd say Midnight in Salem for sure. Now, their final question is, are there any soundtracks you think are so different they don't really go together? I am going to have a very, very controversial opinion on this, and I think there's one particular music track that it's never really worked for me personally, and that is the Olympic track from The White Wolf of Icicle Creek. Now, I know a lot of people love that track, and it's a good track, but it's not one that's ever really, jumped out at me as an amazing track. And I don't know, it kind of feels like it was just thrown in there. But I know Kevin Manthey really loves that song, and if you want to know a little bit more about that song, actually, take a listen to our latest episode of the NDW podcast, where we interviewed Kevin Manthey and talked about Nancy Drew music for nearly 2 hours. It was amazing. You're going to want to check it out. We totally talked about this track, and he was actually disappointed to find out that it wasn't in the final game. But it was never a track that really jumped out at me, and it never really fit into the game's soundtrack in my eyes. That's my opinion. Fight me on that. That's it. The next question comes from Samantha Bartley, and Samantha wants to know, do you have a personal favorite and least favorite soundtrack from the series? Oh, that's one of the hardest questions to ask, because it's like, what's your favorite song? I'm like, there's millions of them, man. I don't know. If I had to choose, though, I think for my favorite, I would have to go. But okay, I'm gonna put it this way. At the moment, my favorite soundtrack is from Alibi and Ashes. I've always loved that soundtrack. It's got a very like calm and chilled out vibe, and it's like all summery and happy, and it's like a Yellow soundtrack to me, like a very happy, mellow tone. I love it. And that one, to me, I always listen to it. It sticks out in my mind. But Curse of Blackmore Manor is always up there as well. So I don't know if I got a favorite. I've got one, it changes all the time depending on my mood and what's happening in life. But at the moment, Alibi and Ashes. As for least favorite soundtrack, that's just, I don't even know if I can answer that. That's just murder, that one. But again, if I had to choose, it would probably be the soundtrack to Midnight in Salem. Midnight in Salem has some good music, but it doesn't really stand up next to the other ones, in my opinion. Next question here comes from Caitlin Christensen. She wants to know my personal speculations on the maybe new game. For those of you guys that completely missed the big news, I guess, it's not really news because it's not official. Someone named Chaz vs. Jazz, who's a good friend of mine, actually discovered that Her Interactive put in a new trademark last October, for something called Mystery of the Seven Keys. We don't know what exactly it is. Her Interactive has not said anything on what it could be. They have remained tight-lipped, as usual, and people are speculating that it could be a new game. If you want to know more information on that, then I've made 2 videos on it. You can check that out in the link in this description, or just go to my YouTube channel. They should be quite close to the top of my recent videos, and we talk about them there. As of right now, my personal speculation is, I think that it's gonna be a new game. I think it's maybe more that I hope it's gonna be a new game. I don't really know what I think about all of it. I think I hope that it's a new game. Even if it's their last game, I hope it's just something. Because again, we've been waiting a long time for just even a hint about a new game, aside from the usual, we're working on it, stay tuned. Like it's a very different scenario right now than it was waiting for Midnight in Salem, because we had a title for Mid, we had a concept for Mid, but what we didn't have was a release date or any other information. For this new title, we've got nothing. We don't even have confirmation that a game is being worked on. So that's a really tough one. I hope it's a game. I don't know if it's going to be a game. That remains to be seen. I'm really sorry if that's a terrible answer to your question, but that's kind of the way I'm seeing it right now. The next question comes from my good friend Doris Charming, and she says, Q&A you say? Please go into detail about why you don't like Trail of the Twister, because I don't get it. Love you though. Well, I'll tell you, Doris, right now, Trail of the Twister is, and for those of you guys that don't know, it is my least favorite game. I was never really interested in what was going on story-wise, character-wise. I've always thought the music was great. I like the cover art. That's really about as far as my interests go. I don't know, for me the story was just kind of boring. Like, there's just someone who's tampering with storm chasing equipment. Like, I don't know, that just is just boring to me. I don't find any interest in that, and I don't really know how that got past the concept idea, but that's just me. I'm not a huge fan of the characters. Paws, he's alright, but he's not one that I would be like, oh yeah, love Paw, favorite character. I just find it kind of boring, but that's just me. Alright, this next question comes from another amazing friend of mine, Alyssa Snow, and she wants to know, why am I always so busy? Fantastic question, because I'll tell you, I wish I had a very easy, specific answer. It's so many things all the time. It's usually just life, though, and the other part is that I'm just an antisocial guy, and sometimes I just want to be watching 24 or something. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's mostly just life, and I am quite busy in real life with either being popular, because I am pretty popular, having a job, doing school, that's really about it. And it's usually a culmination of a lot of things rather than just one specific thing. I hate to give you that answer for the billionth time in a row, but that's kind of just that's just the way it is. Next question here comes from Chris Lieber. I'm so sorry if I just mispronounced your last name. Chris. And Chris wants to know, do you think the ND PC games have already peaked, or are you optimistic about them going forward, assuming there are more to come? Yes, I think the games peaked. I think they peaked back in like 2003 or 4, like long time ago. There was a lot of good games between, Blue Moon Canyon and Danger by Design all the way up to now. But I really think it was that era that is just from, I'd say, game 7 to 13 or 14, I think, is like such a strong era of amazing games. And I think that's where it peaked, and they may not have gone downhill entirely. They definitely did go uphill because there were a lot of good games that followed, but I am not optimistic about them peaking again, because based on how Mid went and what I've heard about the company as Mid was being made, I don't believe that we'll ever see anything even remotely like what was going on when those earlier games were coming out. So yes, I think the games have peaked. I'm optimistic about one more game coming out, and that's about it. And the final question comes from my buddy CodeLink, and he wants to know, how would you feel about Nancy Drew games expanding to other platforms such as console or VR in the future? I am 100% on board. I have played Midnight in Salem on Steam with a controller because, fun fact, you can do that if you have an Xbox or PlayStation controller, plug it into your PC, play it on Steam with a controller. Trust me, it is completely worth it. It doesn't cost anything extra. It's coded into the game. And it was just hardly advertised at all. But I really do believe that it was a fun experience to play on console. Especially with the way that Mid was designed. It's fun. It's really fun. If we're talking VR, I played Half-Life Alyx on my buddy's Oculus Quest or whatever, and it was such an amazing experience. And I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to play a Nancy Drew game in that kind of immersive experience. And I seriously, just imagine, and I know a lot of people get motion sick, but just imagine you can put on a headset and all of a sudden you walk into the Technology of Tomorrow Today lab from the Deadly Device, or you can walk through the train in Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon, or explore the jungle in The Creature of Kapu Cave. Like, stuff like that, it's so immersive, and they've already made these worlds stupid immersive as they are in 2D. So just imagine if they were VR. Like, that to me is so exciting. They would have to completely remake the games to accommodate for this style, but I'm 100% on board, man. VR Nancy Drew, like, give it to me. And VR headsets are like $400 Canadian now, so it's very cheap compared to what it used to be. And that about wraps up the first ever Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really enjoyed it. If you have any questions that you want asked in a future Q&A, or you just want me to stop Q&As in general, let me know in the comments. Because if you guys want me to keep going, I will gladly keep going. I absolutely love this, and just being able to talk about Nancy Drew is my favorite thing in the world. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. I will be sure to answer them in the next one. And that's about it. Happy 2022, everybody. We got a lot of great content coming this year. I can't wait. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day.